Fans, we are live with another edition and a special edition at that of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. And tonight we have a man on that I've looked forward to interviewing for a while. Huge fan of Mr. Chris Candido, no gimmicks needed. In fact, I borrowed his moniker as a tribute, and we have so much to get into with Mr. Jonny Candido. But before that, as per custom now, I'd like to throw to the man whose show this is, Mr. Cheap Heat himself, Maurice.
Jonny, if you're wondering why we do that, it's because Jack has got better internet than me, and it holds up the live stream better. So we're broadcasting from Dublin via Canada into the States tonight.
And every show needs a right? So
yeah, he's better at the intros than me anyway.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really stoked to be on and answer any questions you have and tell funny stories and, you know, what it was like growing up in the wrestling business and becoming a wrestler later and everything in between.
Yeah. We might start with that just because obviously I know your brother was highly influential in training you, but how late were you getting into the game? Was it a decision you made kind of near the end, or?
No, so me and my brother are like extremely close, like crazy close. Like he used to take me to every ECW show with him. Even when I was younger, meaning like when he first went to WWF and he was 22 when I was 12, he was on a like crazy schedule, and he'd be like, all I cared about at that time was baseball. He'd be like, if the shows weren't local and I couldn't see him for a couple of days, he's like, all right, dude, the second I get back home, I'll take you to the batting cages. And if you'd get back home too late and the batting cages were closed, we'd hit baseballs in the parking lot. Like me and my brother were always just so tight, you know. And so did I make the decision because of my brother to wrestle?
Yeah.
So it was more like, so at a young age, I was always going to the gym. I wanted to be a boxer. Well, that was like my first thing. And I got into that, got trained in that. And I'm like, Cook. So his nickname is Cook. When I was a baby, I couldn't say Chris. I called him Cook. So our family called him that, and all my friends called him that. So I'm like, Cook, I want to be a boxer. He's like, dude, don't be a boxer. He's like, you're going to get Parkinson's. You're going to mess your whole head up. He's like, just come on the road with me. You know, just, you've been around it your whole life. Just come be a wrestler. I'm like, all right. So how I got into the business was I started just going to the ring after, you know, when it got set up, taking bumps. And then he'd get in there with me. We do certain things. But also I just grew up in it. Like we lived across the street from the beach. So we were always arm dragging each other on the beach, wrestling, tussling, suplexing each other, throwing each other over waves. So it was just natural. Like the first match I ever had was, I think my first between 5 to 10 matches was just against my brother. And I remember my first one, we were in Rochester, New York. I drove him up there. His car had a problem or something. And I drove him up there. And we get to the locker room. He's like, I don't really know any of these guys. I'll just work with you for the main event. I'm like, really? Is that like cool? He's like, yeah, it'll be fine. He's like, keep your ears open. For the finish, I'll miss the diving headbutt. You fucking get me a chair shot, 1, 2, 3, or whatever the finish was. So he was just bumping around for me, feeding, bumping. I was grabbing him, suplexing him left and right. And so since then, I just started, like, me into the business. It was just working with him. And then, like I said, him and Balls, his real name's John. So if I say John, I mean Balls Mahoney. So I started working with him, and then I would work with him and Balls because it's a lot easier to work with somebody that you really know. So I started working with them, and then after like 15, 20 matches, I just went off and started, you know, on my own wrestling. So, yeah, it was a decision I made, and we figured, this was around when I was like 21, 22, and the two of us figured we would just be tag team partners later on in life when I got a little bit older. And that was kind of like our life's plan, you know?
if before we get into some of the great stories and details that you have in terms of your experience in the business moving forward, I thought I'd ask you about the topic that has been on a lot of people's minds, both in the public and in the business, and that was the recent sentencing of Tammy Sitch, Sonny, and the comments that she made that hit a lot of us in a sour way, for lack of a better term, was when she mentioned your brother's death as the start of her downfall. I know the judge didn't buy it, and I'm sure a lot of the public were very disillusioned by that comment, if that was even possible with her. Just wanted to give you the floor to kind of clear that up or give your thoughts, please.
Yeah. So first off, when her sentencing hearing was going down, right? I was on vacation in Miami. I was staying there for like a couple weeks, and I was like, "Oh shit, Tammy!" And it said on YouTube, live streaming Tammy sentencing. Oh, I got to hear this. So you guys know Rene Dupree, obviously, right? So
yeah,
they put this psychiatrist on the stand, and he's like reading his credentials. And I texted Rene, and I'm like, he's like, "What's going on in the trial with Tammy?" So I did the show for a little bit. I'm like, "Yeah, there's this psychiatrist on there. He's giving his credentials, but as soon as he, as soon as he says what's going on, I'll get back on." It's like stayed on there for 8 hours. So what she said when she first got on there, so first the whole, all right, I'll hit the PTSD thing first because this one pisses me off. When she said,
I think we lost him there, Jack.
Yep. Okay, you're back. You were just about to comment on the PTSD, Jonny.
Yeah. So the PTSD to straight up, right? So when my brother like physically died, right? I'm at the hospital. He's just dead, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, dude, wake up, man!" Like I'm pumping on his chest, trying to wake him up. She leaves the room. I'm still not giving up on him. She comes back in the room, and she's like looking all annoyed, and she's like, 8. I'm like, "What?" She's like, "All I got was 8 Xanax for this," and she like left. Started talking about having PTSD. I'm like, there that day, and then the doctor even came in to me, and he's like, "Do you need a shot, a sedative? Do you need a prescription?" I'm like, "Nah, man." I'm like, "Just close the fucking door, please." And so when she started bringing that up as her having PTSD, I'm like, "About what?" Because she acted like it was like nothing, And then, so, what I was saying was, right, so it was getting live streamed. I went down to the pool, put my earbuds on, I was watching it and listening to it at the same time. And the psychiatrist goes, she said 7, 8 concussions. She's had compacted discs, slipped discs in her back, broken bones, all this different pain, from her life on the road as a wrestler. And I'm like, she wasn't a wrestler. What the fuck is she talking about? Like, she's lying to this guy, Like, is this guy not fact check? Like, maybe she did a couple of those little cat fights where she rolled around with a girl, but she never, was out there like taking bumps and so I think someone came on and was like, "Are there any medical records?" Maybe it was, I think the whole day was for the defense, but someone asked, like, "Can we see medical records?" And the guy's like, "Oh, no, that's self-reported." How about the broken bones? Oh, that's self-reported. How about the slipped disc? Oh, that's self-reported. So she kept, saying all that, and also she kept saying about her going to be a doctor, right? And I remember this time because the two of them, my brother was going to Tennessee no matter what. That's all he ever cared about was being a professional wrestler. And his goal was to get to the WWF, and he knew he had to go through Cornette, work at Smoky Mountain, and that was it. And And I remember Tammy. I remember hearing my parents and her parents and everybody talk that she had plans to go to Miami to be a doctor. And then my brother that night, I remember, or whenever, he was like sad. I never really saw my brother sad like this. And I'm like, Cook, what's wrong, man? He's like, oh, me and Tammy might break up. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to Tennessee. She might go to Miami. And I remember my parents having a talk with him, like, if she decides to go, you can't hold her back. He's like, I know. So basically, the whole her going to medical school thing was just like, she didn't have like a scholarship, or she just planned to go there. Like, that's it. Like, when I was a kid, I used to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger on Commando. I wanted to be a commando. I didn't go. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same kind of deal. So, and she like put so much weight on that, but it's like, nobody was twisting your arm at the time. They were seniors in high school who had just started dating. And like I said, I remember my brother being like sad about it, but he was like, he wasn't derailing his dreams for her. If she wanted that to come, great. If she didn't, peace out. Like, that's it. Like, he had that one thing, and that's all he was doing. So that part kind of made me nuts when she put so much weight on that. And also, I just thought that her, to skip forward, I'm sure I'm missing a lot of things, but her like finishing statement or whatever she said was like such a narcissistic piece of shit. She's like, when I took the Hippocratic Oath when I was 16 to be a doctor, it was to do no harm. And, I think that I've entertained the world and I've helped them. I've helped terminally ill children through my work with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I would be better suited to use my celebrity to go out there and educate people on the dangers of drinking and driving, because one little mistake can ruin your life. And then I remember the judge like cut a promo on her, and she's like, "This wasn't one little mistake. This was like your 9th DWI. What are you talking about?" So those are like the broad strokes of what I remember from the sentencing hearing. But yeah, there was a lot that I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, this is not true." Like, I was there, So,
did you want to talk about something in that Dark Side of the Ring episode that you wanted to clarify as well?
Oh, yes, about Puerto Rico. That made me crazy when she was like, "Oh, Puerto Rico was terrible. There was no running water. People would throw batteries at your head, throw piss on your head, do all this stuff." So I flew out to Puerto Rico to meet them. They went first, then I went out there to meet them. I heard the same stories. Batteries at your head, they'll dump pee on your head. But like, so in Puerto Rico, picture an indie show, right? And if someone were to pelt her in the head with some batteries, the entire locker room would clear and they'd go beat the shit out of whoever just did that. You know what I mean? Like, I never saw anything like that happen to her when I was there. And like one time I saw, I forget the fella's name now. Somebody threw water on one of the boys, and the fucking locker room cleared, went up there and beat the shit out of all the guys. You think if somebody threw piss on Tammy and hit her in the head with batteries, the locker room would not clear and just demolish whoever did that? And what also pissed me off was so when I first got there, we stayed at the Empress Hotel, which was in like Isla Verde, and then we stayed at this guy Bronco's house, and Bronco gave us his bedroom. Like, it was going to be my brother and Tammy, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I have a brother who's like 6'1", 300 pounds, who's coming also," and we're all sleeping in Bronco's bedroom. He's sleeping on the couch. In the morning, his grandmother would make us breakfast, and that'd be like if I go to Ireland and you take me in for a couple of weeks, and then I go to your house, and then I come back home like, "Oh, Ireland fucking sucked. It was terrible." Like, that shit got me so mad, because it wasn't just that, because we stayed at other people's houses, and aside from that, like when we were kids, we'd go to Puerto Rico on vacation, And still, some of my best friends that I talk to, I go to Puerto Rico every year to visit friends. I still have some of my best friends in the world that are from Puerto Rico. And I just hated everything she said about that because it was bullshit. Like maybe up in the middle of the island, the water pressure is not the best, but the running sewage, the this, the that, the people pelting on the head with batteries. Like, you really think that would happen? Like, you guys have been around wrestling. Would that ever happen without a locker room full of people running, security and the locker room running up to beat the shit out of whoever did that? Like, come on. Like that just made me so mad that she was saying that because it's such clearly bullshit. I mean, people who don't know the business or haven't been around it might buy it. But like I said, I heard the stories too. The people, fans here are crazy. They throw spark plugs, batteries. They might even dump pee on you. It's not true. I'm sure it's happened. You know what I mean? But not without the locker room clearing and a big brawl ensuing. So yeah, she's not just getting pelted in the head with batteries and nobody's doing it. I just didn't like how she said all those terrible things about Puerto Rico because like everybody there just like greeted us with open arms, let us into their house to stay as long as we wanted. Like I don't know, man. Sometimes she just likes to like rewrite history as it suits her, which has always just been, yeah. So I want to get that straight about Puerto Rico. Everybody there was great. It was everybody in the locker room kicked ass. The fans were freaking great, and that was it. Why would you try to make it something that it wasn't? I don't.
Apart from that segment, Jonny, what was your overall thoughts on the presentation of that episode about your brother?
So overall, overall I liked it. The message got across. The message that I wanted to get across was like my brother was the cleanest person in the world. All he cared about was wrestling, lifting, eating right, this, that. And it was only due to him breaking his neck that he ever even touched a pill or anything like that. And like, I just needed people to know that, yeah, he went through that rocky shit, because when you suddenly discover these drugs that help you at a later age, you're like, oh wow, and you've never experimented with anything before, you might go off the rails a little bit, and he did, but then he stopped, and he got clean, and he was fucking, back. It was literally overnight. Once, like me and him had that discussion. In the documentary, they kind of made it seem like we had that discussion in Puerto Rico, but we had it when he got back here about him when he was like saying, "Oh, the guys on the Indies nowadays." When I was 18, I was jacked. I was, going to Japan. I was going to Smoky Mountain. And I was like, "Yeah, dude, that's why you were standout. That's why you made it." I like that part got across. The only thing, if I'm going to be a little critical, some parts got edited in different ways, but it didn't really impact the story. Like when I said I couldn't watch my brother getting treated that way, that was a time. There was a long time that people didn't want to use Tammy, just wanted to use my brother, and I'd work on the undercard. So it'd be us together, and then bam, come with us, balls would come with us, whatever. But sometimes she would want to insist upon coming, lock herself in my car. And yeah, I remember this one time in Boston, like we tried so hard to like dissuade her from coming, but she'd come, she was a huge scene at the freaking building, and then back at the hotel, she's fighting us in the car, and back in the hotel room, she's punching, kicking, hitting my brother, and I couldn't take watching it anymore. I dragged him out into the hallway. I shut the door behind us. We fought for a little bit, got to a stalemate. I'm like, let's go. Let's get in the car and let's get out of here. Like, leave her here. Fuck this. So that's they made it seem like that happened sooner, but that really happened when I was like 20 and he was 30, 21, 31. But yeah, overall, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but overall, I like that the message got through, and I was very happy with it.
But before we leave that topic permanently, I wanted to ask you from the perspective of a fan that, really appreciates the body of work that your brother left behind and his skills and his talent. Does it ever seem to irk you that all the criminal behavior and misdeeds and et cetera, drama with Tammy, sometimes to those that aren't as well versed in your brother's work, it kind of overshadows it? And I know you're doing a tremendous job, which we'll talk about later on your Twitter, keeping his memory alive and highlighting all his great moments. But is it in some way a relief that she'll be away for a very long time and there can be some separation there?
Yes, of course. I mean, it kills me that the two of their names are like inevitably just linked, because they're such different people. Holy shit. Like I said, I don't know if you guys spent any significant time with my brother or hung out with him. Like, he was literally like the nicest, most affable, coolest person on the planet, and she was the absolute opposite. Like, literally the only time me and him ever fought was over her, you know? Was about her doing some wild shit, him having to stick up for her, and me saying, "What are you, fucking crazy?" Like, so it did. It made me freaking crazy. And oh yeah, what killed me too was like this whole downward spiral thing happened after Chris passed. That's such bullshit. Like, everybody who knows anything knew that she was a nightmare before. We just were really good at hiding it, because when if he'd be gone, if he'd be in Japan, he'd be like, "Dude, please watch Tammy, make sure she doesn't burn the house down," you know? So I would do that for her. But even then, she would just do some of the craziest things, you know? And yeah, it does make me mad. But I think, but you also have to, just with me too, like, he's 10 years older than me. So I thought he was like this, you idolize your older brother, obviously. So I thought he was this all-knowing older brother that had all the answers to everything. And it was a little later on when I started realizing, you know, I mean, he died when he was just 33. So, you know, I'm in my 40s. My little sisters are older than 33, and I still look at them like they're little, you know. So, but no, that stuff did make me crazy. And if I had been a little bit closer in age with him and not 10 years, I would have been able to have been like, yo, especially with the cheating stuff. Because if I'd hear about this, like, let's say this is when I'm wrestling, they'd say, "Oh, dude, I heard Tammy got with Shawn Michaels behind your brother's back," and I'd be like, "Cook, people are telling me about Tammy and Shawn Michaels." He's like, "Dude," he's like, "Listen," he's like, "There's 300 guys in the locker room and one girl. Don't you think there's going to be some rumors?" Of course, there's going to be rumors. And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. There must be rumors." So whatever was like apparent to everyone else, to me was just, of course, I just believe my brother. Like, why wouldn't I? You know. So, and I think maybe he needed that cognitive dissonance too, to be able to like function. You know what I mean? Because some people are like, "Oh, Chris must have been into it." Trust me, he wasn't into it. It drove him fucking nuts. You know. But yeah, sorry if I went on. I have strong feelings about that whole thing, how it was perceived and then how it was, you know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, and I'm going to try to humor this a little bit, that I can't imagine that she's granted a make-a-wish to anyone and anyone's ever asked her to make a wish. I just can't imagine that.
She's one of those people who, like, she'll just make shit up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's like, "Yeah, I was a fucking champion ballroom dancer and I bred Siamese cats." Like, she'll if she doesn't know, she'll just lie or just make up some type of fantastic, crazy story. Here's like a real one, for instance, right? Anytime Tammy drinks, she wants to drive and she wants to fight. Like, it's gonna be crazy. And I remember, so it shows you how nuts things were at the time. My one buddy, we're a very close knit community. So I have like a lot of friends and acquaintances. And my one friend, after the Dark Side of the Ring thing, he's like, "Oh, dude," he's like, "I always tell people the tornado story." And I was like, "What the fuck's the tornado story?" He's like, "You don't remember the tornado story?" I'm like, all right, now I do. So here's the tornado story. We're hanging at my brother's house. Me and a couple of my buddies are on the porch hanging out. Tammy's gone, right? She's gone for a little bit. Everybody's like, where the hell is she? Or my brother is anyway. And she comes walking back. And we're like, where's the car? She's like, oh, it's down the street in the ditch because I was driving home in a tornado, picked the car up, flipped it through the air. It landed in the ditch, and it's right there down the street. Like, there was a tornado, really? And we walked out, and we're like, we've been on the porch the whole time. She's like, yeah, there was a tornado. And then me and my buddies walked down there, and of course, there was the car upside down with the hazards on. So we just called a bunch of my friends to come flip the car back over and, got it out of the ditch. But, yeah, man, there was, like some people say, like, oh, this person can't drink. Tammy can't drink. Like I made the mistake. My brother was in Japan. I was 20. It was around like 11:30 midnight. Me and my buddies ran out of beer. We're like, who can get to buy some beer? Tammy, of course. So I go pick her up. The only place that's open is a bar that sells packaged goods. I'm like, yo, Tammy, here's some loot. Go inside and get us 230 packs, whatever. So I'm waiting. She's not coming out. She's not coming out. I'm like, fuck this. I'm going inside. So I go inside. She's at the bar. She's drinking. I'm like, Tammy, you get our beer already? She jumps away from me. There's a bunch of guys playing pool. She goes to the pool table and she slaps the balls all over the place. They go all over the ground. The guys playing pool were like, yo, we're gambling on this shit, you psycho. And they started, they're like, yo, bit. So now I start getting into it with these guys. I'm like, don't talk to her like that. So me and these guys are about to fight. Then my friend Sue, who happens to be there, trying to defeat things, goes, Tammy, I've been to your house. You have a lovely house. She goes, you've been to my house? Turns to me, bang, and starts attacking me. So I'm trying to carry her out as she's beating the shit out of me. And now here's the cold part, right? I'm driving with one hand. She's in the passenger seat. I'm blocking punches. We get back to the house. She sits down. I sit here. And she goes, I feel really bad about what happened before. Can I give you a hug? I go, yeah, you can give me a hug. I go to give her a hug. When you're giving somebody a hug, you don't really pay attention. She goes, palm striking right in the fucking nose. She goes, palm strike. Al Snow showed me that. I go, ugh. I ran over to a door and just, bah, 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 bah. I put like a million holes in it, ripped it in half, and left the house. I was so pissed. But yeah, she can't drink. Anytime she drinks, it's mayhem. But yeah. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but it's not like, I'll tell you what, when she got arrested, like one of her last times, and she wrote, I'm out of jail, the Taminator's back. I'm like, now she's embracing this shit. I'm like, something bad's going to happen. Like I thought it might be her crashing into a pole or a tree, but, to hear that she like killed some poor guy, like it literally made me sick to my stomach. I was like, holy shit. Like, so yeah, like that part obviously is so fucking terrible. And I think the judge gave her 17 years and then 8 months probation. But then I know she still has open cases in Jersey and Pennsylvania, so those don't just go away, right? I mean, those stay. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm happy. Long story long. Yeah, I'm happy she's behind bars and can't hurt anybody else or get drunk and crash into her.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that so many people could see this coming, and it had to end in an awful tragedy. Notwithstanding her involvement in Chris's WWE run, which you can't separate the two, but what were your thoughts on that gimmick, that Body-Donis gimmick, and the whole deal there? Because it seemed to be quite a departure from those of us that were familiar with his other work to take on that persona. What were your thoughts on the gimmick, and do you know his?
Yeah, I was gonna say I know his better than mine. I mean, he was like, you know what? So he saw this as him kind of paying his dues. He was a young kid, born in 1972. So do the math. 95, he was 23, 22, 23, 96, 23, 24. He saw it as paying his dues. And then when that ran its course, he was helping train The Rock, had The Rock's first couple matches with him, was helping to train Mark Henry. And he was like happy at that point. You know what? Like after the whole Barry Horowitz thing. So one thing you have to realize about my brother is that he never took himself too seriously. I mean, he took professional wrestling very, very seriously. But outside the ring, he's one of those guys that much rather joke than be serious. Like he was probably joking around 95% of the time. So like after the Barry Horowitz thing, people in the mall run up and like run away. He thought it was hilarious. So his thoughts on it were he's paying his dues. That's it. Then they put him on the back burner, and they used him as, you know, I guess to help train the younger guys and like as enhancement talent. And in his brain at the time when he was younger, he's like, I know I have a small window in the sport to make money. I don't want to teach other people how to be the star. I want to be the star. If you ask him that same question again, when he was 30, he'd say, why the F did I leave? I should have just stayed there and they would have repackaged me, but I was just young. And so like what I didn't know, you know, because how could I, is I talked to a lot of guys who came up with him in New Jersey. They were like, dude, your brother was like the guy from Jersey that was like everybody wanted to work with. He was like the man going everywhere. So I'm not saying he was cocky, but like he knew he was good. I think with him not being on TV as much and him like, you know, training the younger guys, he got frustrated. And I'm sure there was other things there that frustrated him too that made him go to ECW. So he, like I said, he saw it as kind of paying his dues in a way, and later on he'll get his, you know, he'll get his shot, which is probably would have happened if, you know, things didn't go left. But I mean, he really had no regrets. He never took himself too seriously. He took the sport of wrestling seriously. He would have been much happier as being the Blonde Bomber or Chris Candido, Mr. Charisma, you know, no gimmicks needed. But he knew he had to do that gimmick, and, you know, so, and what did I think of it? I was too young to really think anything of it. I just thought it was cool that my brother was in WWF, because, I mean, again, like from my perspective, when I was a younger kid, it was like, you know, everybody, all the kids on the beach hanging out, they're like, oh, dude, Johnny's brother is freaking jacked and he's a wrestler. Like, that's like pretty much the extent of like what people knew. And then he was like, oh, check out Johnny's brother is really jacked and he's got a hot girlfriend. So my perspective wasn't like, you know, I was young, so I didn't really know, you know.
Yeah.
But it was. I remember his first night in ECW. It was a birthday party at my Aunt Kathy's house, and like a limousine pulls up. My mom's like, "Yo, Johnny Cook's here." I'm like, "All right." So I go out to the limo. And he's in his gear and everything. He's like, "Dude," he's like, "I'm going to this new company tonight in Philadelphia. You want to take a ride with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." So we went. And he's like, "Yeah, I left WWF." I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's go to this new. I'm going to this new company, ECW." So I remember us driving up, and I was nervous. I was nervous that the people wouldn't know who he was, because he's coming from WWF. Because we rolled up, and all of a sudden, there's all people everywhere looking into the car, banging on the windows. I'm like, I wonder if these people are going to know who he even is, really. So I go back there with him, and he knows all the guys in the back, which I'm like, all right, cool. This is all right. And then he goes out there and he has his match with Spike Dudley, cuts a great promo. And that's the night that Tommy Dreamer and Brian Lee had that scaffold match. And I remember watching it from the Eagles Nest going, whoa, this is like something different, you know? And then really like being into ECW, and like, I'd be like, oh, Cook, you have to take me to, so he would take me to the shows with him. And, you know, yeah, you remember the Blue World Order?
Of course, yeah.
So me and my buddies, we were in 8th grade, 7th grade to 8th grade. We had our own little backyard wrestling federation. And in the back of the ECW arena, there was like a giant locker room, and then there was like another room off to the side with a wrestling ring. Me and my friends who built our own little ring, we had our gear bags, and we'd go there and like take our promo pictures in like a real wrestling ring, and like for our little fake, for our little programs or whatever. So, Meanie and Stevie and Nova were like, "Oh, what does Diesel wear? What does Shawn Michaels wear?" And they would like go through our gear bag, like, "Oh, can I wear these gloves? Can I wear these?" And they're like, like come to the ring with us and carry these signs. So me and my buddies were carrying the PWO signs, and I remember this because I've seen it a bazillion times. You remember when you see the BWO coming through the crowd? Have you ever seen that shot? It's on the rise and fall of ECW. So I'm carrying one of the signs, and I go to jump the rail, and I'm kind of a fat kid, and I fall right on my face. And then I get back up, and I carry the sign, and then I get to the back, and I see Louis Piccoli and my brother and Taz, and they're like, "Oh, you took your first bump!" Hey! And everybody's clapping. I'm fucking mortified, but no, but ECW was a lot of fun, for for all of us.
What did you think of that? That was actually, of course, on the list of questions. But what did you think of the atmosphere in that arena? I actually caught a number of shows there back in the day, and certainly had my experiences. But a lot of folks say, "Oh, it's just a grungy bingo hall," but it was more than that, wasn't it?
Oh, it was electric. It was freaking electric. Like, man, like there's certain times when the lights cut off and Sabu was like there's certain moments that were just fucking electric. When Sandman took that bump off that ladder, yeah, it was much more than when everybody had the heads for Al Snow. There were so many times that were just so much more than just a bingo hall. If you were there in the crowd, or in the Eagle's Nest, that was a hell of a place. It really was. And I was so happy years later because before my brother passed away, I told him all the different things I wanted to accomplish in the business, and working there was one of them. So I'm glad I got to I get to work there a good amount of time. So I'm super stoked about that. But yeah, the atmosphere was electric. You couldn't duplicate it. It was unreal. And as much as it sounds cliche, all the guys in the back really were like family, and it was I still talk to a lot of those guys today.
Were you not, well, I don't want to say surprised, but the fans in the arena there had a well-deserved reputation of being what's the term, hardcore, not to use a cliche. Was there ever any concern that Chris, coming off WWF television with that particular kind of WWF-esque at the time gimmick, would have a hard time there? And were you surprised that the fans took to him like that?
No, I wasn't, because there he wasn't bodied on a skip. There he was himself, and that kind of shone through in his work. And he didn't have to play that caricature. He could wrestle like he did, like he wanted to. Because everybody's gimmick, kind of their personality turned up, and his was like, yeah, I'm a good-looking guy, and I'm a little bit cocky, and I'm good at what I do. And he just kind of exemplified that when he went out there to wrestle. And I think the people they kind of understood that what it was. Being a body Donna, it wasn't his choice. But being Chris Candido, no gimmicks needed, he could be himself. I mean, his finishing move, the powerbomb of the top rope, when people saw that, when I saw that, I'm like, my God, and just his work rate at the time, and he got to control a lot more, because when you're wrestling in a big promotion, you can only do X amount depending on where you are in the card. So yeah, his work got to really show through, his personality and how he could be serious but do something silly in a match, like take a Ric Flair bump right in his face, or do something and it would still be topical and not take away from the match and make it too like haha. And yeah, I feel like he really got to shine, when he was there. What did you think about it? You enjoyed his time at ECW? I feel like that was probably that was probably his happiest. Right when he got to WWF was actually, I think that was him like reaching a goal. As you know what I mean, as far as like career wise. But then, like, you know, after that faded, then him going to ECW and get to kind of recreate himself as himself was another big part of you know, of his body of work that people can go back and watch.
Yeah. On yourself, Jonny, we have to talk obviously about your career as well, and like you've wrestled some notable names in your time. Is there any moment or match in your career that stands out to you as your favorite?
Oh man, I was thinking about this earlier because I don't know. So my cage match versus my brother was one of my favorite matches, but my cage match with Balls Mahoney, I think, was my favorite because I was so fucking mad at him before that. So me and him kept trying these different finishes, and Balls was very cerebral. People wouldn't really know this about him, but he was like, he'd been in it since he was 13 too, so everything needed a reason. So we would do this finish where, like so, throughout the match, he would have me on the table, and I'd get off the table, and we would say if it was like a table ladders and chairs match or whatever, he'd have me on the table, but I'd get off, and I'd boom hit him. He put me back on the table, I'd get off. He put me on the table, I'd get off, and then I'd superplex him through it. So then one night he's like, "How about we do the table, and then I'll duct tape you to it, and then drop a leg." I'm like, "All right." So we did that. That came off freaking awesome. And then we kept kind of like up in the ante. And so long story long, we had a cage match. And this is when I was so pissed off at him. We had a cage match, and he was out. So he had all these different ideas for finishes. He's like, "I think we can pull the nutcracker off the top of the cage. If you do here, he's like, or you could do a swanton. I move, chair, I go, blah, blah, blah." So we had all this shit like written down in a notebook, and he was out selling his 8x10s and all that kind of shit. So I'm in the locker room. I can't go fucking talk to him, and you know, I'm pretty green, not green, but not as seasoned as him. He's 10 years older than me. So I want to know what the finish is. And the only time I would get to see him is if he went to the bathroom. And I'm like, "Dude, can we talk about the fucking finish, please?" He'd be like, "Not now, not now." I'm like, "I'm going to fucking kill this motherfucker." Like I was so mad. And then, so finally it's our time to go. And I'm like, "What are you thinking for a finish?" He's like, "All right, here's what I got." He's like, boom, boom, boom. Chair shot me, put me on the table, go to the top of the cage, miss the swanton through the table. He's like, "I'm going to take you, I'm going to duct tape you to the table, climb to the top of the cage, and drop a leg on you." I'm like, "All right, sounds good." So I do the swanton through the table. He takes me, duct tapes me through a table, and I'm like laying there, like just staring up. My thinking was, drunk people survive car crashes because they're loose, don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, I'm just going to lay here, but then I don't know that he's going to jump on me. I remember like opening up one eye and just seeing he's like, fuck, at the time he was like 380 pounds. Just watching him climb up the cage. And all of a sudden, and from what I saw later, the cage doesn't, I mean, the table doesn't break, it explodes. And it's just ricocheting everywhere into the cage. And then, for some reason, his mom was there. She's never been to a show with her. His mom was there. And she runs up to the cage and starts screaming, "You guys have gone too far this time." And I was like, wow. I'm like, I'm just going to lay here and pretend I'm fucking dead. So I did. I laid there. I let the EMTs come, put me in a stretcher, take me back to the locker room. All the boys are looking all concerned. And I get up. I'm like, "Yo, I'm fucking fine." And then that was one of my favorite times. And it was just after that, what was funny was we did like a show in Wildwood on like a Wednesday. And this was like after our feud had wrapped up. And they're like, they needed a main event. And it was like me and him. And I'm like, "Yeah, for the finish, just do the leg drop onto the table." And they gave us a table like a little, like a like you have in school, and the table would not break. He did a leg drop on my face, the table wouldn't break. But yeah, in the big match, the table broke. We finally broke the table in the second one. But yeah, that was my favorite matches. Me and Balls' cage match for sure. And then getting to wrestle him at the Meadowlands for WWE in front of like my hometown crowd, which was really crazy because I was like laying on the beach earlier, like a bunch of like friends and who were 5 years younger than me, and their friends. And then I get to the ring, and I look into the crowd, and they're like, "Johnny, what the hell?" And I'm like, "Yo, what up, fellas?" And it's like guys I saw on the beach like 2 hours ago, you know. So yeah, a lot of my favorite matches were with John, and of course with my brother too, you know. So I have a ton of them. I can keep going, but
are we going to address the? We alluded to it before we hit record on the podcast today. The spirit of Chris in Balls' house. You might have some insight into that.
all right. So where to start with the spirit of Chris in Balls' house? Is this Balls telling you this? Because
no, I heard this. I heard this at a show in Dublin that Tammy done about 15 years ago, and she tried to call Balls to verify it during the show.
All right, so she might have been working. I don't know, but Balls was very like, I'm a Wiccan. I can talk to spirits. I can do it. So me and my brother was like, what do you think Balls does when he's just like sitting home alone? We're like, let's go find out. So me and him like parked our car, like creeped up to his house like fucking Navy SEALs, and we looked through the window, and Balls was sitting there eating one slice of bologna with a fork and knife. Me and my brother start cracking up. We're like, oh my God. So my brother goes to the window, taps on it, Ball stops, goes back to his bologna. So me and my brother are watching this, right? And then finally I go, boom, 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 boom. I knock on his windows, we run away. The next night we're like, let's go over there. So we go again. I like take his garbage cans lids, boom, I knock them together. So anyway, we're going to our parents' house, and we pass by Balls' house. He's like, hey, come here. So we're like, what's going on, man? He's like, JC, Chris. He's like, my house, there's spirits in it. I see them at night. There's two men. They're what the hell did he say? He's like they're I'm forgetting the word. But he's like there's two apparitions that I see at night, and they knock on my windows, and then he was blaming them for everything. He's like, they steal my medication, they go into the refrigerator, they throw shit out of the drawers. Okay. So we're like, really? So then we kind of had Balls convinced that his house was haunted, because anytime if we would like drive around that area like late at night, we're like, let's go look in Balls' house. So we would go look, and he'd be there like reading a book on the couch, and we just like fucking knocked. So I think it was more her working, because we were like, because you know he was so easy to get a reaction out of. So you know, I mean, my brother's spirit could have come to him. I mean, my brother's in my dreams like 4 out of 7 nights a week, and we have full conversations. So I definitely believe that, you know. So I don't think it's work. I think she might have said it as a joke, because we used to mess around, you know, and then pretend that that Balls' house was haunted. But
there is some substance to the story then, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if anything, his like not to get all weird with you, but I have like some dreams I have with my brother. A lot of them are like reoccurring dreams. When, like I said, we spent so much time together, where I'll be like, it'll just be like a regular day, you know, and me and him will be he'll be in my dream, be like, yo, dude, what's going on? Hey, man, what's happening? And then I'm like, yo, wait, where the fuck have you been? I haven't like seen you in a minute. He's like, oh, I'll be around. I'm like, hold on, I have to call mom. And then I'll wake up. And then I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'll have like some crazy ones, you know. But no, his spirit's definitely around. Some of the stuff that's happened around here. He has a bench on Spring Lake Beach that he's had since he passed away, like a bench with a placard on it. During Hurricane Sandy, all the boardwalk, everything got torn up. There was nothing there except his little plaque that said, in loving memory, you know, our son, our brother, our champion, by the beach. his little placard just rolled up onto our block. And he's just done crazy stuff for me. Like if I had like a bad payday or whatever, there was a time $100 bill boom, hit my windshield. There was another time money was blowing down the street. I won 10 grand on a Back in Black scratch off. Like he just like hits me with different things here and there, to let me know that he's watching.
That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I noticed you worked a lot of legends in latter stages of their career, King Kong Bundy, Snuka, Valentine. But I also noticed you had a match against Lex Luger in 2006, and just wanted a two-part question. Is it difficult to work, or was it difficult to work those guys, given their tenures, and specifically was Luger some of the way that we hear he was at that point in time with you?
So the older guys, no. I mean, like so you guys obviously all your people who listen are like smart, right? Obviously. So the guys like Snuka, and a lot of the guys could still go, but I would be like, listen, I would like to those guys, I would say I have an idea. How about we do this? We'll fucking, we'll tie up. Obviously I'm the heel. We'll tie up. I'll get right on you. Boom, boom, boom. Break your eyes. I'll go to the corner. Stinger splash. I'll do the fucking strut. I turn around. Just bump me. Shoot me in. Give me a big backdrop. And then I'll go to the outside. Fuck around for a little bit. Neck ringer over the top rope. Get on him. Miss a swanton or a moonsault. But then bump me. Give them their finish. I can make that last fucking 45 minutes. So those guys were loved. Like I love working them. I mean, I did more shit than that, but that was like pretty much how they just let me call everything. And Jimmy Snuka barely even talked. I'm like, you think this is cool? He's like, yeah. He's just like, brother, when I do I'm like, all right. And Lex Luger, I'm like, how about we do X, Y, and Z, and then I'll fucking Mr. Swanton. He's like, why do you want to do that? I'm like, because I don't know, the fans kind of like it, I think. He's like, but it's unnecessary. I'm like, yeah, but I figure for your comeback, I'll do the Swanton. He's like, you don't need to do all that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, all right, whatever, I won't do it then, because you kind of got to defer to the veteran. But to put it simply, I just feel like fans like to see somebody climb to the top rope. Like, oh, what's he gonna do? But I wouldn't say it was difficult. He just like I think he was trying to give me advice about like how to like work smarter, not harder. But it was like my second year in the business where I didn't care. I would just like a swanton every night or a moonsault every night. I didn't give a shit. A swanton, I only did a handful of moonsaults, but I would miss a swanton, like a flip leg drop, like whenever the fuck. But yeah, but working with those guys was great. I loved it. That's why they always put me like when they bring like one of like the legends in town, they'd be like, "Oh, Johnny, you got this guy." I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" But then sometimes, I remember one night, I was supposed to work like Bruce the Barber Beefcake, who I'd already worked like 7 times before, and our matches were like kick ass. And then like, oh, so I went in there like smoking a cigarette, eating a hot dog, like drinking a beer. I'm like, oh, you're working Rhett Titus instead. I'm like, oh shit. So I talked to him. He's like, all right, I'll shoot you in, do a monkey flip. You land on your feet. You duck the fucking clothesline. Michinoku driver. Yeah. I'm like, fuck. So we had a great match. I just remember like, when we were watching me and my buddies watching the Francis Ngannou Tyson Fury match, and he's like he thinks this guy, someone different showed up than was supposed to show up. So I'm like, I know that feeling because I remember I was gonna have like an easy day at the office. Next thing I know, I'm taking monkey flips and landing on my feet and doing. But the crazy thing about wrestling is you have to execute. There's no room for error. You know what I mean? Like if you say you're gonna do it, you got to do it. So I hope
Johnny, Johnny, would you and your family, or would it bear any significance for you guys, like to see Chris be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame for his contribution to the wrestling business?
Oh, of course, that would mean the fucking world. That would mean the world to me. It would mean the world to him. I can't really speak on what my family would care about. My family, they're not wrestling people. They weren't very thrilled that he was a wrestler. They kind of made peace that that's what he wanted to do because that was his passion. But I think they would be happy. But for me, it would be over. I mean, if your passion for the business was like a metric of who should be in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, my brother'd be up there with freaking Ric Flair. You know what I mean? So yeah, that'd be unbelievable to see him, in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, had he zigged when he should have zagged with women, he probably would be. He'd be alive today. No doubt about it.
Well, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. You mentioned your match against Balls in 2005, that tag match with Axel.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to ask you how that came about, and all of the fans of the channel love to hear about guys and any of the encounters that they might have had with Vince McMahon at the time.
Oh, so Vince remembered me from when I was a kid. It's weird. It's like he never forgot a face. All right, so how that happened was, like I said, I was on the beach, and I had seen little shit on message boards, but Balls and Axel went there, and Damian Adams was there, and this is what Balls says. I forget how it went before this, but Damian Adams is kind of a smaller guy, and Balls, Candido's brother, because at the time I was like 23. Like, he's totally raw. He's like 6'1", 280, good looking kid. Get him here. And I had like the long flowing blonde hair. So I'm like on the beach just like chilling, and Sergeant Slaughter called me. And he's like, "This is Jonny Candido. Can you get to the Meadowlands?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then I hear Balls like, "Hey, what are you doing? Get here. Now, get here. Bring your gear." I'm like, "Fuck. All right." And so I go up there, and then as soon as I get there, they're like, "Oh, good, kid. You're on first." I'm like, "All right." So I get with Balls and Axel. I remember, so we talked a little bit. I remember Axel saying, he's like, "Dude, this shit's just easy." He's like, "Just don't fuck up." All right, thanks for that. But then, so Vince, as soon as I walk in, Vince goes, "Jonny, fantastic." I'm just like, fuck. Well, actually, I had been there with my brother prior to that. So we had seen Vince. And I remember like me, my brother, and Scotty Too Hottie and Taz were standing around. Vince was like, "Hey, fellas, what's going on?" Like, fucking remembered us. Or remember me and my brother, the two of them were there. But I remember my brother and I being like, because this was like right before he got hired to TNA. And he's like, "I wonder if he just thinks I just work here still. And I could just come." We were just like, But yeah, he's like, "Oh, Jonny, great to see you." And or he goes, "Jonny, fantastic." And then Shane McMahon was the one who was really like, he's like, "Oh, kid." And also, it was so when I first, like I said, I roll into the building, I go hang out, and I know a lot of the guys, obviously, so I'm saying my hellos, doing my proper wrestling etiquette, say hello to everyone, and I'm sitting down, I'm talking to Jericho, because I'd known him for a while. He's like standing in a door jam, and Shawn Michaels sits down next to me. We give each other like a little handshake, and then, I'm getting ready to go out, and Jericho looks at Shawn Michaels like, "Candido's brother," and he kind of looks at me like, wondering if I'm going to give a shit, And at the time, it was after my brother died, so I didn't know him. Because prior to this, when we were at WWE, my brother would always be like, "Listen, maybe I'm like a little bit more aggressive than he is." So he's just like, "If you see Shawn Michaels, don't fucking do anything thinking you're doing me a favor." He's like, "Be fucking cool, be nice. I haven't been perfect either. So if you did something, who gives a shit, really? If it did or..." So I was just like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" And then, so just what sticks out about that match was and also they're like, so Shane McMahon was like super stoked. He's like, giving me a back massage and shit. She's like, "Come on, kid, shake it up. I want to see all your stuff." Da, da, da. And then, so when you get back there in like the gorilla position, they call it, they're like, "All right, 30 seconds 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you go through. So then we had that match, and there were like Balls and Axel, and everybody was so stoked. And then Axel ended up that he wasn't going to be able to work there anymore. So Balls, this is right after my brother died. Balls was like, JC, me and you were going to be a tag team. Me and you. And so I got, on one hand, I have Balls screaming in my ear because he's like, I already talked to Shane McMahon, meaning. And he's like, he said we can tag. I already talked to him. And then I have my parents in my other ear going like, if you, they're like, we can't go through it with another son. Like, we don't know what we're going to do if you decide to take a path. Like, and then also, Sabu was there at the time. Sandman was there at the time. So if there was like a show anywhere in New Jersey or Philly or PA, I'd get a call from Balls like, where are you? Why are you not here? And then I get a call from Sabu or Sandman like, kid, what are you doing? Why are you not at this building? Fuck, all right. So I kind of had like 1 foot in, 1 foot out at that time, But yeah, all the time they were super cool. Everybody kicked ass, I had a great time. And, how many people get to say that, they started wrestling and got to work for WWE, which is something really cool. I do wonder what would happen, but I also realized that like a lot of my friends from that time are fucking dead, along with my brother.
Yep.
And I was kind of on the same path. So, that's why, what? Me and my brother, we were in the car, and he's like, what are your goals in the business? Like, it was one of the only times he was ever, like, really serious. We don't, like, people always ask me questions about my brother's career and what he thought about this and what he thought about that. And I'm always never talked about that kind of shit. We would just, like, talk about what's going on at home, make fun of our friends, fucking, whatever. Talk about lifting, this guy. And then one time he's like, what are your goals in the business? I'm like, get to WWE before I'm like, I'd like to work for WWE before I'm 25. I'm like, because you got there when you were like 22. I'm not like crazy as you, but so I'd like to get there like a little bit later, like 25. And I'm like, I want to work the ECW arena, and I want to be NWA champion. So like after that, I did all those things within like a year and a half radius. So I kind of feel like that was my brother, pulling the strings from heaven, getting me to knock those couple things out. And then that way I could, because like I said, who knows with I said there's only a couple of the guys from my brother and my brother's time that are, a lot of them are past, and it fucking sucks. So I probably would have been there with them,
Well, Jonny, like we suspected, we've burned through this hour, and it literally feels like we've just scratched the surface. Hopefully, you will be available to come back to do a part 2, because I have a load of stuff still to discuss with you. But just to end this particular episode, I touched on it at the start. You really are doing a tremendous job on your Twitter, keeping your brother's memory alive, honoring him, educating, fans that may not have been as fortunate as me to see him wrestle live, et cetera, et cetera. But I know this is a tough question, but if you had to dilute it down to, or delineate it to a specific aspect of his contributions to the business, and again, that's difficult, I understand, but what would you want fans to remember the most, or what do you think is his most proud or monumental aspect of his legacy that he left behind?
Kind of hard. It's kind of a loaded question, but just think about a kid, who that's all he ever cared about in life. Maybe compare it to someone who wanted to be in the NBA since they were 7, younger, 3, and then my brother getting that chance to have his dreams like within reach by the time he's out of high school, and then he finally, is on the cusp of attaining. His dream was to get to the WWF and be a WWF wrestler. That's all he wanted to do when he was a kid. That's all he cared about, and he got to do that. He got to live out his dream. He got to see the entire world. He got to do what he loved to do. his I'm sorry, my people are text messaging me. What would I say were his best moments in the business?
Well, if you had to pick one, what would you say his most prominent or proud accomplishment would be for his legacy for future fans to remember him by?
He would probably say winning the NWA title because Ric Flair did. For his legacy, he'd probably say being in the triple threat with Bammer and Shane, because Bammer's from like not even 5 miles from where we're from. And I don't know if you know this, but my brother started running shows in a park in Spring Lake when my brother was 13. I think Bammer's 9 years older than him, so Bammer was 22. So my brother was running shows, and Bammer was on those shows. So Bammer was like a big brother to my brother and like an uncle to me. So I think the triple threat would probably be his biggest, the legacy that he would leave behind, So, but there's so much, man. Like the whole, he was in a bad spot and then bouncing back, and having some of he was so fucking happy when he's like, dude, how did I live those years when I was all like not clear headed? He's like, oh my god, like he's like there wasn't enough time in the day for him, So I think a big part of it is having that drive to just to just be to have that, to have blinders on, just attain that one thing you want to attain, and then when you're down, just getting back up and overcoming what seems insurmountable and achieving it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, dude, I'll come on for part 2. I feel like we haven't even talked for that long. Fuck, it's been almost an hour and 8 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll definitely pop the link to your X account or any other social media stuff you want us to pop us over. Obviously, Jack says you're doing great stuff there.
What do you call it? I got an Instagram account too now, so people can check me out. Just Jonny Candido, JONNY CANDIDO. So you can find me on there, and my picture's what's up,
Harry?
Thanks, brother. Thank you, Harry. And I think my Instagram handle is Candido18, but yeah, Jonny Candido, no H. They always put H on the internet for some reason, but it's just JONNY CANDIDO. And
I think we're going to need to change the title of this video.
What's that?
There's a H in there. I think there's a H in the title of this video.
People always do. It's okay. But yeah, check out my Instagram. Yeah, you can go on my Twitter. I think my Twitter is at Candido118, and I think my Instagram's the same thing, Candido18 or Candido118. Both is Jonny Candido, JONNY CANDIDO. Yeah, man, I'm down for a part 2. Sure.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I will look forward to part 2. We'll keep in touch, and we'll have the fans aware of all your appropriate contact information, including one without the H. Maurice, do you have any final thoughts, sir?
No, just want to thank Jonny for his time today. I know like some of the stuff might be emotional and stuff to talk about. I know it's not easy, and really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Well, fans, that's it for this edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. Stay tuned as always. If you haven't, hit subscribe on that button for YouTube updates, and you will be aware when we are planning to do part 2 with Jonny Candido. Until then, good night.